Friends, the Charlie Kirk Show team here. America's debt bomb has blown past $37 trillion, and it's climbing every second. President Trump is fighting for fair trade and strong borders to slow the train wreck, but the numbers don't lie. When debt grows this fast, it can threaten your savings and your family's future. That's why more Americans are turning to real assets like gold and silver. I work with and recommend Preserve Gold. They make it simple to own physical gold and silver, even inside your retirement accounts like an IRA or 401k. Text USA to 50505 for their free wealth protection guide. With a qualified purchase, you could get up to $20,000 in free gold or silver.
Indiana, we've got President Trump has been whipping Republicans across the country. Redo your maps, get more Republicans elected to Congress. This is important for executing the agenda I got elected on. Indiana voted for Trump by about 20 points.
Yep.
They voted for him in all three elections. The base seems to like this, but the Indiana senators do not.
No.
And so they didn't. They voted on it yesterday. There are 40 Republican-aligned senators in the state. They needed 25, and they got 19. 21 of them failed us. So we're going to talk about this with Tyler Boyer, who is joining us long distance. Are you there, Tyler?
What's up, guys? How we doing?
Well, we're not doing great right now. These Indiana guys failed us, didn't they?
Oh, man. Yesterday was a dark day for Indiana. Probably one of the worst days and the most embarrassing days Indiana's had since it voted for Obama in the first election. And you can see why you have some slippage in the state, because you're surrounded by really terrible Republicans who make really terrible decisions. The bill that was being produced was a pretty straightforward bill. It was to offset the manipulation schemes that are being run by Democrats nationwide in states that are far less deep blue. They are hijacking congressional seats. And in Indiana is one of the unique states that kind of made a mistake last redistricting, and they gave 2 seats to Democrats that many argued were not really justified. Indiana is one of the deepest, reddest states in the country, and there are many arguments to be made for a 9-0 Republican map. And so naturally, the president's team said, hey, that now's the time to go back and redistrict and look at this thing and get us a 9-0 map instead of a 7-2 Republican 7 Democrat 2 map that currently exists, because we need you to step up. And so they produced the bill. The grassroots, the entire Republican Party across the country and across Indiana supports this. All of the polling shows 70 to 80% of Republicans support this. It's a no-brainer. And yesterday was the time to shine for the Senate Republicans, and they showed up, and they needed 25 votes, as you mentioned, Blake, or 26 votes to pass it, and only 19 voted for it. 21 voted against it.
All right, I want to get Joe Bob and Mikey in here, but very quick, because Charlie would do this. We need some just direct accountability. Let's throw up 326. And if you're a Hoosier, pay attention to this, because these might be your senators. These are the Republicans who did not vote for this new district. We're just going to go through them. We have Senators Eric Bassler. We have Vanetta Becker. We have Mike Bohacek. We have Roderick Bray, Brian Buchanan, Jim Buck, Ed Charbonneau, Brett Clark, Mike Kreider, Spencer Deary, Dan Dernulk, Blake Doriot, letting me down on the Blakes. Sue Glick, Greg Good, Travis Holdman, Gene Lysing, Ryan Mishler, Rick Niemeyer, Linda Rogers, Kyle Walker, and Greg Walker. I apologize if I missed any of those names, but if you'd voted with us, we wouldn't be reading them.
You did pretty good, Blake. And there's a couple of people to really point out here that are in deep, deep red. Like, we're talking 20 to 30 point Trump districts. A couple of them. Senator Dernal, or spelled Dernulk with a C at the end. Dan Dernal was one of those individuals. Greg Good, who is a person that who works currently for a U.S. Senator. Senator Ryan Mishler was actually in Florida. He spent so much time outside of the state that he actually he missed a couple of the votes. Misses a lot actually in the state of Indiana because he spends most of his time in the state of Florida instead of being there voting. Linda Rogers actually is in our TPUSA Faith pastor's district that he lives in Indiana. So, I mean, you've got a couple of people here that this isn't one of those things too, because there's a handful of people here that are in, you could argue, swing districts or fairly Republican districts, but a vast majority of these individuals are in districts that are deeply, deeply conservative. And it won't be difficult to challenge and get them out of office. So we've actually posted jobs already yesterday. The moment that they voted, Turning Point Action posted 5 jobs yesterday on our website, tpaction.com/careers. We're hiring up people to actually help recruit and hold these guys accountable because their election is on May 5th. The primary election for most of these individuals is on May 5th, where we're going to be hopefully getting many of these people out of office.
Tyler, I think, if we're going to zoom out 30,000 feet here and look at kind of the primary causes as to why some of these squishy Republicans don't want to side with their constituents, but also the president, is some of these people have been in office for 30 years in the Indiana state legislature. They don't have term limits there. And so they're concerned of, well, what if I lose my seat that I've kept for 30 years? In your opinion, would having kind of term limits in this instance maybe get some of those more squishy people to go, hey, I'm out anyway. I might as well do what the people want?
Yeah, I mean, there's different reasons why people are motivated. Sometimes you've got like really creepy insider type stuff where there's some kind of lobbyist or some kind of local corporation that's keeping somebody in that's funded their life like all throughout. So they're not really beholden to the people or the president or anyone else. They're beholden to these very specific special interests that are super and hyper local. And that's why you see most of these guys in most of these states kind of go against what you would, because you look at this situation, right? Joe Bobby, you go, how is the US president, the president of the United States, the vice president of the United States, more in tune with what the grassroots and what the people of Indiana want than their own state senator that lives around the corner from them? And it's truly mind-numbing. But when you start to look introspectively, like we're talking about here, and you start to discover, oh, well, there's 1 or 2 key lobbyists that have been funding their way of life. Their steak dinners, their special events that they get to do, the things that keep them warm and cuddly. Sometimes it's land developers. Sometimes it's, again, different interests. There's hospital lobbies. There's education lobbies. There's all sorts of, and each of these people typically have 1 or 2 of those that make them tick. And that's who they respond to. One guy got up yesterday and actually talked about this. This is how mind-blowing it is. He talked about the pharmaceutical lobby, and that's the reason why he was voting no. Well, that very company that he had brought up had been benefited most greatly by the president of the United States and the work that he had done on behalf and with bringing back a ton of business and a ton of interest for the United States, particularly in the pharmaceuticals area. And that's just how mind-blowingly dumb some of these state senators are. And they don't care. They have no interest at all in getting it right. They just want to try to run over their own people and benefit their own pockets and their own votes.
Mike, you travel a lot with Charlie, so you were with him, I think, when he'd meet a lot of the, for example, when he went to Nebraska and he had to lobby these people. Do you have any insight on what's going on with these people? Is it just that they're very local in how they view everything?
I just think they're very weak people in general. I'm going to mark these the terrible 21. Very shameful. Shame on them.
Okay, send that
Alliteration.
straight to Trump, I guess.
That's
The terrible 21.
Terrible 21.
That's good.
Shame.
Shame. No, but in all seriousness, traveling with Charlie, you see all these people, even Nebraska, when we were trying to get that electoral vote there in Omaha, they're just weak, and they think they know more about the world because the world is in need of their very small
Or
vote.
because their world is their state house,
Yep.
their little rivalries, their
Yeah.
little grievances, or they're mad Trump didn't, he bashed them on this specific thing. That's Trump. Get used to it.
Yeah, and then but they're very stubborn, and because that is their world, they refuse to think outside of the box or to think bigger than their small jurisdiction that they're in. or be a team player or a coalition builder. But Tyler, you see this all the time. Like you see this at Turning Point Action. There's so many state senators, there's so many congressmen, there's so many people like this that just refuse to think outside of the jurisdiction of their own mind and local community or what they care about most. It's hard to see.
Well, keep in mind too, a lot of these people are influenced, unfortunately, by the mind control schemes of the former Pence relationship.
Yes.
So, so remember, we knew this was going to play a factor. I mean, Mike Pence is licking his wounds after getting kicked to the curb by MAGA and by the president, by everybody, because of the way that he acted after the 2020 election. And many of these people kind of had this mental thing where they thought that Mike Pence was going to be president someday. And now they're kind of butthurt over this whole thing of, well, I'm not going to ever help the president ever again because Mike Pence isn't going to be president someday.